Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to speak about the Venus-Mars-Pluto conjunction. It's happening tomorrow night, Wednesday night, here in California, and Thursday morning. So before I delve into that, reminder, the Essentials course, it started, but the enrollment is still open this week. The content was released on Sunday, and our first live meeting is this weekend. We're going to be speaking about the introductory material to evolutionary astrology. So all of the segment 1 material is about the intro to the natal chart, speaking about the soul, evolution, karma, all of those concepts. I speak in depth about the evolutionary stages of the soul. So our Q&A will be on all of that basic core philosophical spiritual perspective. This weekend you can still join. There are tuition assistance options available. And the self-study program is also open for those that do not wish to be a part of the live training program. Check it out in the description below. So, Mars, Venus, Pluto. This is a lot. Mars, Venus, Pluto. There's a lot going on here, so I want to unpack a couple different dimensions. First, Venus past Pluto. This is the third pass. In December, when Venus passed Pluto for the first time, then went retrograde, then passed Pluto again. So it's been pretty much a quarter of a year that Venus has been dancing with Pluto in this way. Then for the past several weeks, Mars and Venus have been dancing together. They've been literally right next to each other within a degree. And they're both going to conjunct Pluto within hours. And what's really interesting to add to all of this, we're looking at 3 really essential archetypes. Mars and Venus, we know them as sort of polarities. And also, Mars is the lower octave of Pluto as well. And also, Venus and Pluto are also kind of polarities. Right? Taurus is opposite Scorpio. Aries is opposite Libra. So we have a combination of really strong polarized energies coming together this week. And I'll speak to that. And what's fascinating is just 3 or so days after this conjunction with Pluto, pretty much right after Mars and Venus enter Aquarius, they enter a new sign, new energy, and then Venus begins to separate. Right? They actually start leaving that conjunction space, and Venus picks up adequate speed to pass Mars. So there's a lot going on here. There are several archetypal dimensions and metaphors in this that we can really look into. So let me tune in where to start. Let's speak to the relationship between these polarities first. Pluto we can understand as being evolutionary necessity. So anytime anything is in relationship to Pluto, in particular a balsamic conjunction, right? Planets moving towards Pluto, it's dissolving into the will of evolution. And what does that mean? The evolutionary journey, we always can think of it as one of elimination. We're letting go of what we're not. Not this, not this, not this. And what we are attached to, right, points to who we think we are, points to identity. We as timeless, infinite, powerful, eternal beings, not quite aware of that. So it's an ongoing evolutionary process, and Jeffrey Wolf Green describes it as a process of exhausting all desires, till the only desire that remains is the desire to reunite with the source. And we can say that as an exhaustion of the attachments to identifying, right, with all that we are not. This is me, this is me, this is where security. It's all in the ephemeral. And a part of the Plutonian process is where we are always going to face our deepest vulnerabilities, our deepest fears, our deepest attachments. Thus, it points to what we're not aware of. We can access and become self-aware through the strong emotional reactions that we feel strong emotion. We can feel a visceral desire, craving, aversion, resistance, hatred. We can access that, but we can't necessarily immediately from the beginning know why. What's underneath it? What is it pointing to within my own personal healing process? One of the reasons why evolution's slow is we tend to become very consumed with our strong emotional experiences, and we act on them. We create a world around them. We build our identities really around them. And so we manifest an experience on a plane of experience that resonates with whatever we haven't quite met within ourselves. And it repeats. Strong Plutonian transits like this really does have the opportunity of pointing us to a deeper internal reality, things that we have not perhaps reached. So there's a humility and a beauty in recognizing, I don't know about the healing I haven't had yet. I'm not aware of the things that I haven't seen in myself. But I'm following the thread of my fears, my attachments. Also, not just attachments, fears of attachments. Pluto also speaks to its divorce and marriage. It's where we form relationship, commitment. Through such commitments, we uncover and awaken to things that we couldn't have otherwise have found. Right? The fear of getting close, the fear of entrapment is a part of the Pluto archetype as well. So we walk a journey of facing the things, moving towards and letting go, all as a part of a process of a shedding, letting go of the protection. And we do heal. We go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And it really does, I always find, point back to our choice. And what's uncomfortable about it is sometimes we don't know what choices to make, or we don't know how to respond to life experience. This is a very common Pluto phenomenon, right? We know there's more because we can feel and we can acknowledge, okay, anything that feels unresolved, anything that is triggering, not to say we have to be perfect, just a very neutral, objective statement, says there's more work to do. It's simple as that, right? Full self-realization doesn't get pissed off when you look at them the wrong way. To know who we are truly is to know who we are, right? And to not know who we are is to get hooked into the 1,000 possibilities of hookedness that life offers. And it's just showing us this is where our work is. And that's really what this life is about in many ways. It's where we get to apply the teachings and see this is the unraveling and the remembering of who we are. To have appreciation and gratitude actually for just that this is a work. In my last video, I spoke about that, just to appreciate that the natal chart speaks to an evolutionary process. That itself says there's something intentional here. There's something holy and meaningful about our lives. Tangent. So that's Pluto in general. Now you meet that with a polarity of Mars, right? Well, it's not a polarity, so let's meet that with Mars. Mars is a lower octave of Pluto, and I posted a video, Mars, Pluto, and Conscious Evolution, a few weeks ago. And I speak a little bit about this. And this, again, is really based on a teaching I received from Jeffrey Wolf Green. I really appreciate this teaching. We can say Mars is the way that we translate the predominantly unconscious impulses of the soul into conscious choices. We bring it into consciousness in a way that we can say, the choices we make relative to Mars. Mars is executive. It's making decisions. It's will. What do I want? How am I going to get there? What do I not want? We're making choices moment to moment. And it really points to the reason for those choices. If we're going to bring a soulful thoughtfulness into our choice-making process, that means we're going to think about the consequences of our choices. What do I really want? What's my intention? What's my goal? And it does take an immense amount of self-awareness. So when you bring Mars with Pluto, there is a lot of deep, what am I doing? We have to burn karma. We have to respond to experience. That sets in motion our evolutionary journey. That's Mars. Mars, Pluto, we're confronted with psychological obstacles that we haven't seen through yet, and we have to respond to them. So when we react instinctively relative to Mars, Pluto, that often can just be a symbol of resistance, right? Mars needs to feel free to act, but an unconscious expression of that freedom is freedom for its own sake. I need freedom to act, so I'm going to do and say and act however I want to, entitled. That doesn't serve evolution. because there's no thoughtfulness. And it's not true freedom, it's reactivity, and it's actually indicative. What we defend is what we actually believe enslaves us. What we are defensive against, what we need to disprove, what we need to fight is what we believe is a threat over us. It points to exactly where our beliefs are. There's a deep teaching in the Course in Miracles that says, my safety lies in my defenselessness. And this doesn't mean being placid, right? I'm speaking about Mars, which is alignment and clarity and will. There's a strength in it. But I'm differentiating the use of freedom as defending freedom for its own sake versus understanding that freedom is the capacity to make choices that serve one's evolution. And in that sense, we are not free to change a playing game, and we are not free to manipulate or control the things that arise, the people, place, things, circumstances. It is irritating to the ego. It is irritating to our identity constructs, to our attachments. But we are free to look within and to make choices that actually will open the doors to the realization of our true nature. It sets us further down the path. And so Mars, every choice has a consequence, but the learning is to go as quickly as possible towards the goal. The learning is to go as quickly as possible to whatever serves evolution. And that's the stress with Mars-Pluto, right? It does really invite a deep reflectiveness, a deep internal space of inner looking. And to meet the confrontation, the content that's uncomfortable, and to frame all of it with, again, this is why I like to come back to the gratitude, because in the midst of discomfort, there is a part of our awareness, our consciousness that is just looking. Our soul being that is present to it happening, where we can access simultaneously, this is all for the good. I do not see what's at the other end, but I trust in this. There's a teaching in the Course in Miracles too. There's no will but God's. To reflect on that. Everything reflects God's will. It doesn't mean our interpretation is accurate, but to really accept all that is, and to really seek to become a disciple of it. And that's the beauty of Capricorn. So a lot of what we are doing here is we're retraining conditioned patterns. In that sense, really healing a lot of patriarchal conditioning in how we're using that Mars energy, how we're using that masculine impulse. Okay, so that's the Mars-Pluto dynamic. In and of itself, a Mars-Pluto conjunction is really powerful. And the balsamic is really introspective, reflective. We find ourselves really with a lot of stimulus. And then we come into the new phase. There's still choices, but it's more where we're setting in motion a new cycle. And so we start to become more self-aware of what we've decided, what we've already chosen, the seed that we've planted. And that sets in motion new choices, new experiences, and we have to have the courage to see it through and to meet what comes now. So just watch as Mars passes Pluto and just continue to see what unfolds. So let's take it to the next dimension. Venus is the polarity to Pluto from the perspective of Pluto Scorpio being death, evolution, right? Shedding process. The Venusian part of the Taurian part of Venus is about life, is about sustaining this life. You got to survive. In order for the soul to be here and do this evolutionary work, it has to have some sort of appeal to the body. Like being in a body has to have some kind of appeal. Sex has to have some kind of appeal. Procreation, survival, all of these things have to have some kind of appeal for the soul to create a biological existence and experience as a human. So the whole realm of senses, the survival instinct, pleasure, pain and pleasure, the ability to distinguish between the two, the will to survive, and for the species to survive from a spiritual perspective, from the point of view of the soul's evolutionary journey, we can understand and think of it in terms of, well, this keeps us here, right? And thus says, I'm here. There is a personal life here. My life has value. I have to care for my life. And instead, it's my responsibility to have esteem, to value, to have self-value, to respect the fact of my embodied existence. Without that, then we can't really engage with life. We can't do the evolutionary work if we're not here, if we're not in the body and honoring the reality of it. Now, the issue with Venus in general is where we become attached and possessive of whatever makes us feel good. That sort of misunderstanding the survival, procreative, biological facet of our experience. There can become a dependency. This is how I like my world. This is how I want life to make me feel. Right? Feelings are a Venusian thing. How often do we hear people say, or how often do we say, when you do that, it makes me feel this, or I don't like the way you make me feel, or you make me feel great, right? We love associating feelings with external cause. And a dynamic with Venus is we can find ourselves either needing to control our physical and relational reality to nurture how we want us to feel, or, running away from, I don't like that, or I don't like how you're acting, so I'm going to turn away. Right? It's almost like commodifying our physical and our relational reality all according to how it makes us feel. So when you bring Venus into Pluto, we're being thrown back upon ourselves. Taking full responsibility for knowing our own needs, our own value from within ourselves. Things change. People change. People come and go. People don't meet our needs all the time. Things that we love and value break. Money things come up. Michelle and I are listening to this audio. I think a part of the title is called Your Brain on Love. I think there's more to the title. And one thing he said that kind of irritated me at first, but then I'm like, oh, this is I like this, is that people are inconvenient. And when you're in a relationship, there's gratitude because people are everyone has baggage, everyone has needs, right? He gave this example of, people that become dissatisfied in a relationship and then they go and have an affair, they'll say things like, my coworker isn't this difficult, or my friends aren't this difficult, or this person I'm having an affair with isn't this difficult. I just want it to be easier. And he says, try getting in a committed relationship with that person. Anyone inevitably is going to bring a baggage. Actually, anyone inevitably is going to reflect, because of the unity and the perfection of life. It's just going to reflect exactly where we are at, our own edge in evolution. It's perfect in that way. So there's, from the point of view of identity and its attachments, there is inconvenience. People are inconvenient. And yet there's gratitude in this because we recognize someone's choosing to be with me even though I'm inconvenient. And this is just one humorous way of thinking of it. I would not call anyone inconvenient. Right? Someone's choosing to be with me even anyway, even though I'm and I'm choosing the same thing. And that's sort of two things. It's a statement of, one, we're not identifying the other according to that which is unresolved, and two, we're recognizing the places and the things that come up that are uncomfortable within us are also not who we are. By allowing all of it to be there, there's a gesture of staying with the discomfort, which is the hardest thing for Venus. Staying with discomfort is hard. There are two ways of doing that, though, and I want this to be understood because there are two ways of avoiding discomfort with Venus, especially when it comes to relational dynamics, right? One is, I don't like the way I feel. I don't like you, so I'm going to, dissociate, check out, or look for someone else, or leave, whatever, right? That's just, I don't like this, go to where it feels good. But the other way of avoiding discomfort is to become the counselor or the people pleaser. Okay, so I'm not liking the way that I'm feeling, so let me give to the other person so that I'm more comfortable, right? Those are two general ways, two archetypal patterns for not wanting to feel uncomfortable. Because they're both ways of responding to the discomfort, but neither have anything to do with intimacy, neither have anything to do with evolutionary growth. Both look like something that can be growth, right? There's a place for moving on, and there's a place for really meeting the other person fully and holding space. But when this becomes an adoptive pattern of almost like a learned survival pattern, or a let me get out of here, it's not supportive. So what does it mean to lean into the discomfort? It really means, okay, where does it not feel balanced? Venus has the capacity to be energetically attuned to the energy of balance. When it doesn't, when any situation physically or relationally is out of balance, we don't feel imbalance. And this becomes an internal process of listening within. Okay, what does it feel like, and what is it calling forth? And this is where we're meeting that uncomfortable place. Oftentimes it's a calling to communicate and to be aware of adoptive patterns of running away or, becoming the counselor. The calling for balance is a calling of equality. And it's an active listening to the next moment. So communicating, listening, checking in, feeling. I said this, but let me tune in. Okay, this is important to speak to. Here's a piece to address. What are your needs? What comes up? There's such depth there. Now, this is neither about enmeshment, nor some idea of like sovereignty where we separate from one another. Venus-Pluto points to a very important reality, which is your journey and my journey are a perfect match. Your awakening is in harmony with my awakening. Or we can say it differently, your content fits the puzzle piece of my content. Recognizing that, really understanding that, means we want to lean into the content, but there's a seeing it through. There is a freedom, and in that sense, sort of a freedom from any other ideas of entanglement. There's an emotional bonding, and to go there does require some element of trust. And I'm not just speaking about personal, intimate relationships. This is any relationship where there's this calling to meet. Where is there a calling for balance? It could be a business exchange. Right? So meeting it's meeting the content, and then there's a freedom where two people can rest, and whatever the exchange is, like there's a resting. It's not clouding, it's not creating an enmeshment. And the journey continues, and then the next layer might come up. Right? It's neither an entanglement nor a false separation, your stuff and my stuff. You deal with yours, you deal with mine. There's truth to that, and very often we're called to face each other, and we're called to face what's inside. And that's again where we're often Pluto, and this is especially true when Venus is involved. Pluto will very often speak to where we're actually going to have to face our fears of being vulnerable. Okay, so with Mars and Venus coming together, you can just imagine, and obviously you're alive and you're watching this video, so you can feel this and know it. This is potent. It's really bringing up a lot of content. And fundamentally, how are we orienting to our relationships, our choices, our agreements, our commitments? What's working, what isn't? What wants to be felt and seen and understood? What are the needs? How can we nurture a greater field of growth and healing that serves awakening? Where is there fear? Where is there enmeshment, entanglement? Where does the leaning in and our freedom come together? And what choices can we make? How can we direct our will in a way that's healing? All leaning into the discomfort of whatever has been arising. Then they separate from Pluto and they move into Aquarius. It's a complete, maybe I'll make a new video then too, but it's a completely new cycle. Aquarius is like, you're doing all this deep work, unraveling conditioning patterns, expectations, roles, blah, blah, blah. Capricorn, it's heavy. And we've been in Capricorn for a long time. Aquarius, new. Aquarius is not precedent. This present moment has nothing to do with the past, in essence, in truth. So there's something that is self-revealing, that emerges from an unconditioned mind. We could almost say we're creating the ground for something to emerge and reveal itself. that perhaps is beyond what we could imagine. It's deeply relevant to our soul path because that's what's always emerging, but it doesn't fit within our conditioned ideas. And so perhaps we can't quite understand it. Perhaps it's in our intuition, it's in our dreams, it's in the signaling, the messaging that life is bringing forward. The archetypal dynamics have been showing up. But what is it actually, right? There's a whole new phase. So it's very interesting, especially with Venus moving on. It's almost like we can say Venus and Mars are doing this deep work. And then Venus, there's some space, right? We can say Venus is now separating from Mars. There's some perspective, there's some space, there's some growing clarity after all this work, and some kind of new field of discovery. And a growing of ground, of new discovery, new values, new ways of being, new ways of relating. I think all of this is going to begin to emerge in pretty surprising ways over the next couple weeks. Okay, thank you for watching.